guys doing? Great? That's good. That's good to hear. So my presentation is on Drupal, HTML5, CSS3, and JS. So just a little disclaimer. I'm not going to cover anything with Drupal theming side, or like previous presentation talks about Omega themes and such. I'm not going to do that. Or anything related to Ajax, I'm not going to cover that. That's the presentation just before me. He already covered some of the basics, which is really good. So this is more like a expression of a new concept or a design more than a development perspective. So yeah, this is just a heads up. Can you actually see this? Here, right here, I can't really. It's really fading. But anyway, this is our agenda for today. I actually just condensed the whole thing into like these equations. I just put it out there for fun. So this is the actual agenda of the day. I have quite a lot of stuff to cover. Ooh, excuse me, guys. Mike. Okay. Okay, there's a lot of stuff I need to cover today, so I might go a little bit fast. So if you guys don't care about anything or want me to slow down, just yell it out. Like raise up hands, say, slow down, okay? Just for my curiosity, how many of you guys here are developers? Ooh, majority of the people here. Themer or designers? Some cool. Project managers, couple, nice. Or business analysts. Okay, nobody. So which is good. We cover, yeah. Part of my presentation will address people with design decisions, development aside too, designers, which is good. So before I actually go further into my presentation, I would like to take a moment to do an introduction about myself and Application Technologies. That's the company I work for. So my name is Richard. I have a bachelor degree of computing science. I specialize in software engineering and artificial intelligence. I work for Application Technologies, which our main office in Vancouver, Canada. We have some other offices. We just opened an office in UK, so we have another office here in Atlanta. I do Drupal development mainly, but then on the other hand, I also do Sprout Core. I'm going to talk a little bit on Sprout Core in this presentation, just a little bit afterward. So Application Technologies specialize in Drupal development, Sprout Core, and Afresco. Afresco is basically an open source document repository. Sprout Core is a JavaScript framework for you guys to build apps on the browser that kind of work like a native app, if you will. Drupal, I'm actually going to skip this. I'm not going to say anything about it. You guys already know about it. So we have a problem here. Suppose I want to make a website that works on all browsers. Well, a simple solution to this, I could create a base style, and then on top, I'm going to add additional style for the different browsers I'm targeting. This is easy because I'm just dealing with CSS and styles, images and such. But to make this work, it takes a lot of time. I need to do a lot of adjustment, a lot of tweaks for different browsers, like IE is difficult to work with. Now, if I want to take that website and make it like a desktop application, well, with what I have right now, I could add in Ajax. That will work for simple UIs. Like, if you need to do anything that's complicated, like you have a widget up there on top, or another widget here, maybe another one at the bottom, and you want to do something to update them all three simultaneously, you might have to write a lot of code just to get those ones up. And then, for example, if you have more complicated UI, you have like a huge menu at top, couple of navigational item there, and then each page has different set of functionality and layout. You have to code all this, which is okay for, yeah, it's kind of tough, time-consuming more or less. So on the other hand, I could turn the whole thing into a Flash application. Now with this, it's very graphical, very responsive to users. But then now, if I want to make this Flash website work on mobile phones, for example, work on Android, iOS, and Windows Phone, that's not going to happen. I'm going to run into problems because this device doesn't support Flash anymore. So the only way out I could see is to turn those into a native app for Windows, for iOS, for Android. So now I have one application, I have 3 native apps out. Now if I have those, I want to do an update, I have to update all these 3 native apps one by one. That's a lot of work, and it's very expensive. And as a developer, I don't really want to do that. So if I have to satisfy all these requirements, the requirements that I listed right here, like all these 4, our current methodology doesn't really work that well. First, we will run into platform incompatibility issues. Second, the cost of development will be way too high, and it's very, very expensive to maintain. So we definitely need a better solution right here, something that is cheaper to maintain, easier to develop, and cross-platform compatible. So before I go on, I want to plug into your brains with some concept that will actually help you understand this presentation a lot better. So the first one is thin client architecture. This is our traditional website. We have been doing this for a long time, and Drupal works this way right now. Server holds a lot of the assets, CSS, JavaScript, images. And the server does all the work, getting all the data from database, running through all the calculations and business logic, generate all the HTML, then send the whole thing back to the browser. So here, the browser only does the rendering. It takes the HTML and then display on the screen. And if the client needs something, in this case, the browser or the user, it will ask the server for it. But there is a downside to this architecture. When a user wants to click to a new page, the browser will have to ask the server for a new set of HTML. The browser could cache some of them, but then still, the server will have to send a new package in. And the server must run through the whole step, from getting data, doing the business logic, and then generate the theme. And this means that every time the whole process runs over and again. It uses a lot of resources on the server. It uses a lot of bandwidth too. So on the other hand, we have thick client architecture. This is exactly opposite. You can think of it this way. This is our desktop application, where everything it's on your client. Everything's done on the client. And the servers here is only to store data. Client will ask the server for data, obviously. And all the calculations and business logic are handled by the client. The client is also responsible for rendering all the graphics and animation. And the client holds all the assets. So an advantage to this one is definitely the client will give very good response to user actions, and feedback is usually provided. When the client asks the server for data, is usually in smaller size compared to a thin client, where the server have to send the whole HTML page. Here, we only send chunks of data at a time. Now, the hybrid design, basically, this is what our focus is today. It is a merge of 2, thin and thick. So here we basically take what's the best from the thin client and the best from the thick client, and we put them all together. Everything related to the display, we move it over to the client. And everything related to data, we move it to the server. The special piece right here is the business logic, where we split it between the two. So any calculations, business logic with, to do with the front end, the client, we let the client handle it. So the server here is only to deal with any of the business logic that relates with data. Server handles that. This is an important slide here, so I do want you guys to make a note of this because throughout the presentation I would reference it a lot. Right now, do you guys have any questions? We are good? Cool. So the last concept here is mobile. Current trend right now is mobile, and as the processing power for on these mobile devices continue to increase, we could actually run the whole website. What we have here on desktop, we could run it like a native app on the mobile device. But if we follow the traditional architecture, like the thin client, we will run into some problems. And usually we have to scale down our website to make it run smoothly. You can do, responsive design here will help. This is where the responsive design will make sure the scaling down works from these mobile devices. Well, another point here is that our mobile network is usually unstable, meaning we have bad reception. We get into dead spots, bad receptions. That will make your website seems to run slowly on mobile phones and appears to be bad to users, even though it's naturally not the case. That is the fact that because the traditional architecture, so the thin client, assumes that we have a fast and stable connection. So that means it doesn't really work out with the mobile devices. Well, another downside to this is basically different mobile devices have their own standards and APIs. So meaning that the iOS app you build doesn't work with Android. So the key here is really, I want to emphasize that we could use the hybrid design to address these issues with the mobile. Well, as a second payoff, it will definitely enhance the user experience on the desktop too. So for later on, I am going to formulate a solution based on this design. So right now, it's just on the conceptual level. Haven't drawn anything related to Drupal or the front end side yet, but you'll see. So now we're done with this concept. So I'm going to talk about Drupal and how we're going to use Drupal and make it the server. So I'm not going to talk much about Drupal, but then here I'm just going to make a point that Drupal is a powerful CMS. Its internal structures, like the nodes, taxonomies, and entities in Drupal 7 here and 8, is really designed for this job and make your life easier to make it in a server. So we mean to make Drupal into an engine that have your data. So it's like a center for all your content management here. The second piece is I could extend the core to handle all the business logic and calculation related to data. Or if we like, we could make a more sophisticated workflow for you guys. So that is really tailored to your clients or your website, your needs. We could also add in a better user-authenticated system. These are suggestions. You don't really have to do it, but make your engine more great. That's good. So now I did mention business logic and such. Sometimes you have business logic that is very computational intensive. We're going to put that on the server. These are too heavy for a client to do it. And after all, the server does have a lot more resources. So lastly, we will put a JSON REST API or an interface onto the server so that the client can use it to get data from the server. Well, Views and Services module here can provide this, make it our life a lot easier. So as a side note, Drupal 8 is already moving toward this direction. So they have on their website right now called Drupal 8 Web Services and Context, Core Context Initiative. That talks a lot more about how to make Drupal as a web resource or like a web service server. So now I'm going to talk about the client side. Again, here I'm not going to say anything about the Omega theme or anything with Drupal theming. So HTML5. HTML5 is the 5th generation of the HTML standard. So there have new elements like the video, audio, and canvas added to it. It also has new JavaScript API like the local storage, drag and drop, and cross-document messaging. These are really good to make your website really stand out. They give you ability to make it like a desktop application. Well, now, CSS3 has added support for media queries, which is used for responsive design. And then you can also do transitions, sliding back and forth, transitions. Transformations, like you have an object shaped like this, you can use CSS to make it scale bigger, smaller, and do a lot of the transformation stuff. Animations, support animations. Well, there is a lot of JavaScript library out there that can be used as a backbone to make your client work like an application rather than just static pages. For example, like Backbone.js, Stansha, and Sprout Core. Sprout Core is the one that I'm going to talk about a little bit later. So the important point here is this combination. CSS3, HTML5, and a JavaScript backbone all together can feel as you can replace a lot of those popular browser plugins like Flash, JavaFX, and Silverlight. I don't think anybody here uses Silverlight. Right? Like Flash is, yeah. So early on, I gave 2 examples to you guys of problems that we could encounter. First one being we want a user interface to behave like a desktop application. Well, second, we want a UI that works on all devices, desktop, mobile. Now, the JavaScript backbone that we're going to use, something like Sprout Core, could address the first issue that we have. And then CSS3 can do all the transitions, all the transformation, all the cool stuff to make the design look impressive. Now, the combination like HTML5, CSS3, and JavaScript, they're all native to all modern browsers. So the second problem that I talked to you about, like, it's already been taken care of, which is a good thing to us. In this case, we could leave behind a Drupal theming engine because in the hybrid design that I just talked about, the server doesn't do any user interface. We allow the client to handle that job. So following this pattern, meaning we could put all the business logic, calculations, do something to do with UI, like if you have like an e-commerce site, you want to do price calculation, tax and such, you can do that on the client. And any dynamically or static generated markups, that's going to be handled by the client. The JavaScript backbone that you have is going to do that job, rendering and also generating the markups. Now, the last point here would be all the required assets are down in initial startup. Because you built that UI, it's like a package now. You dump it on the client, and then it will run through all the logics. So you don't have to go back to the server and request additional pages and such. So I'm going to briefly talk about Sprout Core. Well, Sprout Core right now is an open source framework that allows you to build JavaScript application comparable to a desktop. Good advantage is because it's free. And it uses the model view controller programming paradigm. It supports all the HTML5 features. You can use it to build a simple UI quickly with just minimal coding. In fact, like SproutCore promote code reuse, which means you can, if you create like a header, a menu for navigation, you can reuse that and put it everywhere else. You don't have to rewrite it every time. Like reinventing the wheel is not always a good case. And SproutCore supports or works on Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer, and Safari. Now I'm actually going to show you a video on how SproutCore does things, or what can SproutCore do. So I got it. So this is an application that one of our clients requested us to help to build them for them. We actually partner with them to build. This is the Kobo Instant Reader app. It's built entirely using SproutCore. They have a requirement that the Reader app have to work on both desktop and mobile at the same time. And they need it to behave like their native iOS app and Android. They also need it to work with the new Windows 8, which just came out yesterday. They needed an app for it. So just some key points that I just want to highlight is that it's pretty fast. It's pretty responsive to clicks. So like when you click on the font now, I'm just going to take this off. So clickers are really fast. Now you see like you can change fonts, you can change the layout. It's very fast. You can just, it's like a desktop application. So I'm not going to show them all, so I'm going to move forward a bit. So again, like I'm not trying to sell this product, okay? Because I'm just demonstrating this video just to show how SproutCore does it. In Drupal camp here, there's a requirement that I'm not supposed to sell anything. So it just, yeah, don't worry about that. So it's also worth mentioning that the Apple iCloud web service is built using SproutCore. Okay, so this is where everything comes up together. So bridging the gaps. Okay, Drupal out of the box already provide a lot of the mint user interface for you guys to manage content, and it handles user authentication and profiles already. If you don't care about that UI being ugly, you don't really have to do anything else. The only real work here is to implement the portion of the business logic that is supposed to be on the server, then adding on a JSON REST interface to make the client get data from. That's not hard either, because views or services module already handles that for you. The key point here is that you don't have to worry about making changes to the UI because you just added new content. More or less, what happened when we here in Applovation do for clients is sometimes they want to change content, and that content might or might be affecting the UI, and we don't. It's kind of don't really like to do that work because how to change the little thing because the new content got in. So here it really solved that issue. All you have to do is just go into Drupal and then enter the content, put assets, images, whatever you want there. Then the UI just grab it. Now, because we use HTML5, CSS, and JavaScript to build our UI, it's very flexible in terms of design and usability. Since we don't use Drupal theming engine anymore to generate the templates or the theme. You could say that everything is built from scratch. Well, that is a good thing because you can do whatever you want. But at the same time, you have a higher chance to get into bugs and errors. So that's why sometimes you want a good framework to work with. Now, most JavaScript library out there already have some sort of framework, like Spellcore already does. It allows you to create a view, which is your template and such already. Using HTML5, it generates those. And all you have to do is just write some code, and it will generate the HTML for you. But then if you want more flexibility, you could always write your own. So remember that we want an application that's desktop-like, and it works well on mobile phones too. Now, CSS3 and HTML5 ensure that's happening, while the JavaScript backbone will work all your client business logic and calculations here. Now, there is a benefit to all this. You could wrap your whole UI with PhoneGap, and then it will turn into a native app. You can use PhoneGap and then say you want this to be an iOS app. Click a button, and then it will generate the iOS app for you. And then you can just put it into the Apple Store. That works the same with Windows 8. You can wrap around with Win.js, and that will turn your client, your UI, into a Windows 8 app. So here, you don't have to mess with the data anymore. You don't have to mess with the server, because server now is on its own. The UI is what is the client or the user is actually using. So your client can be a desktop app or a mobile native app. So I'm going to show you, tell you about some benefits that we have because of this. There's a good separation between front-end and back-end development. So all your back-end developers can focus on Drupal and PHP. They don't have to worry about generating themes or templates. So when I was working for a client, I did run into a situation where I have to write template files for the themer to work with. And I'm not really good with theming, and I do know some CSS and HTML, but then after all, I wrote the template, my designer comes in, and then he just scrap everything. He writes his own. So my work is all wasted. Now the front-end developers can focus on making a UI impressive, because they don't have to worry about the server anymore. They can just focus on the UI, which is good. Now this separation here, meaning that you could actually, if you time it well though, you can actually have the front end and the back end work at the same time. You can build your server, you can build your front end at the same time, which is really good. It speeds up development a lot more. Well, another point is that both the front end and the back end is very versatile, meaning you could update or make changes to the server side, Drupal, without affecting any of the UI stuff. And that same goes with the UI and Drupal. So they're separated. Well, another benefit is CSS, HTML, and JavaScript is the easiest way to build UI. I know sometimes I do build prototypes for clients and just use very simple HTML and CSS, and I can build a user interface just to showcase some of the features that we're going to promise to clients. So for me, HTML, CSS, JavaScript is very fast. The fourth point here is related to the third one. And again, I just want to say that the web developers don't have to learn a new programming language. So for example, if I built that app using Flash, I have to go ahead and learn about action scripts. And I'm just going to waste some time there to learn. There is a learning curve too. So they could now, because I'm just using HTML and just JavaScript, I can just stick with that. Fifth point here, it says resources and bandwidth. Again, like the whole UI and all the assets is already downloaded once on the client, and they don't have to go back to the server again and again and get it. It stays on the browser throughout the whole, the whole cycle. And when the client needs data, it just asks the server once, and it's usually very small. It just sends packet along. They don't have to, no more HTML. Like the server doesn't need to go through that process and generate all the HTML again. It's just sending that chunks of data. In the traditional architecture, we have the server handles all the calculation business logic. Here, we have put a portion into the client, a portion in the server. That means the server is you are freeing up the server to do other things. Meaning you could probably, because of this, you could support a lot more users requesting for data services. And the last point here is compatibility, because we're using HTML5 and CSS, JavaScript. They all work on modern browsers. So that means you don't really have to build another app. Just for, if there is a new device coming out soon, I don't have to build another app for that. So showtime. I'm just going to give you a demo of what I just talked about. So in this demo, I built a server side and a client side. The client, I'm using Sprout Core in this example. So it's mainly just HTML5, CSS, and JavaScript. On the server side, I'm using Drupal 7 and the services module. So I'm going to pull up the demo out. So on the right side here is my client on Sprout Core. On the left is a Drupal. So I'm just going to refresh this app to So I'm going to refresh it just to show you it's grabbing data on the first time. So now I have two items here, to do 1, to do 2. And I have the same here on the client, on the server. So this is the admin user interface. So if I checked it, update, then I refresh the app. Notice that I didn't create a new one, so there's only just 2. But then I use the status here to mark as complete or not complete. So now it's not published because I completed the work. I'm going to show you again. So now it's changed to publish. So I'm going to create a new one. Sandbox Studio 3. So now a third one is created, now on top. See, the new one's right here. Now, I could go in and edit this. I can go in and change the title. So I didn't make the app to auto refresh, so I'm going to have to auto refresh it. So now the title is changed. So right now is you can always manage the content on the server side, and then the client will just get it. So I can delete them all because I just done my task. Now it's all gone. So then that's it for the demo. So back. So here I'm just going to do a little recap, saying that the mobile device is the trend right now. The hybrid design is really geared toward this movement. It works great on mobile because it behaves like a native app. It really enhances the UX on desktop. The Drupal satisfies all the content management needs. Drupal can easily convert into a JSON REST server. HTML and CSS and JavaScript are the easiest way and the fastest to create a UI. And the UI behaves like a desktop application or a native application for mobile. And you can easily deploy that as a native app, and it's cross-platform compatible. So any questions? Yeah? Yes.
Where do you store the JavaScript applications? Does it go into a theme, or does it go into a folder inside the Drupal module, or does it get moved to Drupal installation inside?
Okay, so the question is, where do I store all the assets, basically? And is it in the theme, or is it somewhere else? Okay, here is, it really depends on how you want to set this up. Remember that I didn't do anything, didn't touch anything related to the theme. So that means I didn't actually build the theme. You look at the example I did, it's just core Drupal theme. I didn't build anything. On the client side, it's a totally different thing. So one way you can set this up is to have Drupal in one installation, and then use your server setup. You can do your virtual host, and then create a separate directory, and then you have all your client stuff. Your HTML, your JavaScript images on that folder. So in a sense, you never really touch the whole Drupal installation. So that means you can have that Drupal installation dedicated to the backend server, backend side. And all the themers and designers are not going to touch that. They're all going to work on a separate directory. Okay, any other question? No? Good, good. So that's it. Thank you all. If you want these slides or the demo, you can get it afterwards. I'm going to post the whole slides and the demo onto GitHub. And also, I'm going to post the link to it on our Drupal Camp Atlanta session, and under my session.